All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little San Francisco Giant video as the Giants draft a hitter from Florida State in the first round of the amateur draft, James Tibbs. And we'll talk a little bit about Tibbs coming up next. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you in this video. Also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, K-R-U-E-G, and they will match you up to your first $100. Well, the baseball amateur draft used to be in June, and they moved it to the middle of July to try to make it part of All-Star Weekend. And it was on TV this evening. And I'm sure it did not do good ratings. The first pick in the draft was the Cleveland Guardians, and they took Travis Bazzana, a second baseman from Oregon State. Cincinnati followed by taking Chase Burns, a right-handed pitcher from Wake Forest. That was a little bit of a surprise. A lot of people thought Charlie Condon, the Georgia third baseman outfielder, would go 2, but he went 3 to Colorado. The A's took Nick Kurtz, a first baseman from Wake Forest, who they have been all over all spring. There was speculation that he could go as high as 4, and sure enough, the A's pick came up at 4, and they drafted Nick Kurtz, who looks an awful lot like Jim Thome or Freddie Freeman. First baseman who's got power, foul line to foul line. So Nick Kurtz goes 4 to the A's. Hagen Smith, a big left-handed pitcher from Arkansas, went 5 to the White Sox. Joe Chiaglianone, a first baseman, left-handed pitcher from the University of Florida, went to the Royals at 6. J.J. Weatherholt, a middle infielder from the University of West Virginia, went to the Cardinals at 7. Christian Moore, who was a phenomenal hitter for Tennessee, one of the best hitters in the College World Series, led Tennessee to the College World Series victory over A&M. Christian Moore went 8th overall to the Los Angeles Angels. There was a lot of talk the Angels would take Bryce Rainier, the shortstop from Orange County, Harvard-Westlake, but instead they go with Christian Moore, who had an incredible offensive year. Then Connor Griffin went number 9 to the Pirates. He's a shortstop / outfielder from Jackson, Mississippi, went to Jackson Prep High School. Seaver King, the Wake Forest shortstop, third baseman, outfielder, went 10 overall to Washington. How about that? Wake Forest gets 3 of the top 10 picks in the baseball draft. Wake Forest guys. Detroit went with Bryce Rainier, the shortstop from Harvard-Westlake. Red Sox took Braden Montgomery, an outfielder from Texas A&M. And so the Giants were up at pick number 13. Now, there was an awful lot of talk that the Giants were really, really hot to trot on taking Ken Caminiti's relative, who went to Saguaro High School in Arizona. He fell to 24 and to the Atlanta Braves at 24. So they passed on him. The Giants also supposedly had some interest in Trey Yesavage, a right-handed pitcher from East Carolina. He went 20th overall to Toronto. And so the Giants wind up taking James Tibbs III, an outfielder from Florida State. And, for the Giants, I think you'd have to say that they probably are pretty excited about Tibbs. He's a talented outfielder. Let's talk about his scouting report. He's been very productive at the plate. His batting average improved every season at Tallahassee. He finished this year hitting .363. He generates frequent hard contact. He's got good plate discipline. He knows the strike zone. I mean, that's really it. If you're going to be drafted as a hitter early on by a Farhan Zaidi regime, you better have command of the strike zone. You better walk a lot. You better have a real good batting eye. And Tibbs does. He can drive the ball, they say, to all fields. He's got plus power. He hit 28 home runs this year, his final year of college baseball. He's a corner outfielder. Is he a right fielder? Is he a left fielder? His arm strength, they say, is decent, but he probably profiles more as a left fielder. His speed is below average. He's not one of these awesome athlete guys. He's a really polished hitter. He was Major League Baseball Pipeline's 81st ranked prospect in December. And he had moved up the ranks to number 22 by April. Here we are in July, and he winds up going 13th overall in the draft. Now, what did the Giants like about him? Well, the Giants have this organizational philosophy that they really put tons of credence into how an amateur prospect performs on the Cape. The Cape Cod League is a summer league for college all-stars, and it's played in Cape Cod up in Massachusetts. It's a wood bat league, and a lot of times the scouts like to see how the players do in the wood bat league, because you use wood bats in pro baseball and you use metal bats in college baseball, and there's quite a bit of difference. So the Giants always seem like they take the guy who did well in the Cape Cod League and they draft him. And sure enough, he hit 303 in the Cape, 390 on base percentage, 472 slug, 6 homers down there. He solidified his status as a top level prospect with a real nice performance in the Cape. And not surprisingly, the Giants drafted him. So he's definitely an interesting prospect. He's definitely more of a hitter, it sounds like, than anything else. He's a guy who's thought to be a well above average bat. So very interesting draft choice for the Giants. The Giants have had success drafting guys out of Florida State. 16 years after they drafted Buster Posey, they take Tibbs with the 13th pick overall in the 2024 amateur draft. Same once again out of Florida State. And the nice thing about Tibbs is that he's a college player, so he's closer to the big leagues. He's also viewed by many people as one of the most Major League Baseball ready players in the entire draft. So he turns 22 in October. He's a left-handed hitter. He's got great bat control. He's got great control of the strike zone. He had a batting average in the 300s all 3 of his collegiate years there at Florida State and Tallahassee. He saw his power go up throughout his tenure. He hit 27 home runs combined in his first 2 seasons, and then hit 28 this year, his junior year, which is one of the highest marks in all of college baseball. So what are they saying about him around the sport? Well, ESPN's Kylie McDaniel ranked Tibbs as the number 11 prospect in the draft. And he was quoted as saying, for some scouts, Tibbs is the most polished college hitter, not named Bazana, who went number 1, and is a coin flip with Nick Kurtz, who went number 4 to the A's, for many teams at this juncture of their board. So Keith Law, who writes for The Athletic, formerly of ESPN, he had Tibbs number 14 on his big board. Keith Law said he makes great swing decisions and his contact quality is strong, getting up over 110 miles per hour for his maximum exit velocity this spring after topping out at 105 last summer with the wood bat. And then he was also number 14 on Fangraphs ranking of the draft prospects. And Fangraphs wrote Tibbs is one of the 2024 draft's highest floors as a lefty bat with a stable contact and power blend. Lightning quick hands allow him to snatch inner half pitches to his pull side and generate opposite contact on pitches that travel deeper in the zone. There's times when Tibbs' swing looks like a dead ringer for Stephen Kwan's of the Indians or the Guardians. He says, especially against down and away pitches. His hands and the way he uses the ground are very similar, though that certainly isn't a comp for Tibbs' overall feel to hit. So a standout data point here is the consistency of Tibbs' hard contact. Before concluding that quote, there isn't really a headline tool here, just a consistent, well-rounded profile that looks like a quick-moving corner platoon type outfielder. So I don't know if I like hearing platoon outfielder, but I like the fact that he's a quick mover. All the analysts are praising Tibbs for his control of the strike zone, the quality of his contact, for his high floor. And they're all fearful. If they have a concern about Tibbs, it's how well is he going to hit left-handed pitching as a left-handed hitter. He's a Georgia native. He struggled to hit lefties in college. So they're saying that he could wind up as a platoon outfielder, because, he would be on the strong side of the platoon as a lefty. So he would face more righties. He would play a lot. But you never want to hear your first round draft choice as a platoon type player. So, but that's interesting, so he fits the Giants profile according to some. He says a lot of people say he's high character. intelligence is a big, big part of being a great baseball player. I know a lot of people don't think that because Joe Jackson, who's one of the greatest hitters of all time, was illiterate and could not read or write. And some of the greatest hitters of all time, if you go way, way back, were not geniuses by any stretch. But it's a sport that preys on the dumb. And if you're not a bright person, it burns you. And the difference between crapping out in the Cal League and making it to the major leagues is often not about your physical profile. Often it's about your mental profile. So the fact that this is a high character player who is an academic All-American at Florida State and the ACC Scholar Athlete of the Year, that bodes well. He's got great plate discipline. He drew 57 walks his final year in college. He struck out just 38 times. He's got a contact-built swing. He had a strong showing in the Cape, as we said last year, hitting 303 with a 390 on base. So he's been really, really good. He hit 363 at Florida State with a 488 on base, hit a home run once every 11.4 plate appearances, had 95 RBIs, by the way, in a 320 plate appearances. Wow. I mean, that's good. Those are good numbers. That's driving that's driving in runs. So, it's interesting. One of the quirks, and I'm reading this on McCovey Chronicles, but one of the quirks of the minor leagues this year is that the short season rookie ball schedule was moved up a month. So they started a month earlier. So that means that the Arizona Complex League season ends in less than 2 weeks. So a lot of players taken in this draft, the 2024 draft, are going to have to wait until 2025 to actually make their debuts. Tibbs is interesting because he's considered very polished. And so maybe the Giants start him in San Jose in the Cal League. I mean, it would be an awful tall ask to ask the kid to go from Florida State to the Cal League. But it can be done. We saw Will Clark do it. We saw others do it. It's usually you want to send them to the South Atlantic League or a rookie league, let them get their feet wet, let them have some success. And then, if they have great success, maybe you challenge them after spring training next year by putting them in the Cal League. But it sounds like the Giants' options will be limited because of the way the schedule works this year. The Giants, by the way, Tibbs was their only pick on day one of the draft. They sacrificed both their second and third round picks for signing Matt Chapman and Blake Snell. So they're gonna have to wait a while. I think they have to wait till pick 115 or something like that until they pick again. But overall, I think if you're a Giants fan, I think you got to feel pretty good about Tibbs from the standpoint of, the high school players take longer. This guy sounds like he could be up in a year or two. He's very polished. The fact that he's smart and may start in the Cal League. If he starts in the Cal League and has good numbers, who knows? He could be in Double-A at the beginning of next year. And if he does well in Double-A, he could be in the big leagues at the end of 2025. I mean, that would be rocketing through the minor leagues, but I think it's a possibility. So overall, I like the idea of taking a hitter over a pitcher for the Giants because I think the Giants have proven that they can't sign hitters. They have a hard time trading pitchers for hitters. So if they don't draft their own hitters, they drafted Buster Posey. They drafted Joe Panic. They drafted Brandon Belt. They drafted Pablo Sandoval. There's a reason that the Giants, had 3 World Series titles there in a 5-year run. They hit in the draft, and it wasn't just with Lincecum and Kane and Bumgarner and pitchers. They hit with their position players, on a lot of times college-age players. Buster Posey, came out of Florida State. So, he was a college player. Joe Panic played at St. John's. He was a college player. Brandon Belt played at Texas. He was a college player. So, getting college bats who are close to the big leagues and who the scouts think are on the fast track, I like that idea. Because, you get you draft off high-end potential and take a high school hitter, high school pitcher. That's fine. And they may be even the better players, but are you willing to wait 6 years? Because if you draft a 17-year-old kid, odds are he's going to be 24 or 25 before he makes it to the big leagues. Maybe not, but it's very possible that it could be 6 years from now. Elliot Ramos was a 2016 draft choice. He's an all-star this year. It's 2024. Guy's been in the Giants system for almost a decade. So I like the idea of going with the polished college hitter who's on the fast track. And it sounds like Tibbs, it fits that mold. So I can't wait to see him. I think overall was a good pick. Time will tell. That's the beauty of these things. You think you can't judge a baseball or a basketball draft or a football draft. You're projecting a football player to be like a junior or senior in college to a rookie 1 year later. In basketball, you're taking a guy who might be a freshman and you're projecting what he's going to be in 2 years, 3 years, when he's more like a junior or senior in college. And that's probably when he'll break through at the NBA level or gets meaningful time. For baseball, you're taking for high school kids, guys that were at the prom last week who are still, have zits and are 16, 17, and you're projecting what they're going to be in almost a decade. And it's just hard to do. And there's all kinds of things that can pop up along the way to interrupt the trek through the minor leagues. So I like the idea of going for the close to the big leagues polished college hitter. And now let's see if Tibbs can make the Giants' confidence in him pay off. Tell me what you think of the Giants selecting James Tibbs III with the 13th pick overall in the amateur draft in the comments below. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.